iPhone SE first generation. Released back in March of 2016, it was basically an iPhone 6s in the body of an iPhone 5, and to many people that was a very good thing, because pretty much at the time, Apple knew there was still a decent amount of people that enjoyed using smaller phones.
And while the vast majority of our customers prefer these larger display iPhones, we're here today to talk about a smaller iPhone.
And the iPhone SE first gen was the answer to that. And similar to the iPhone 6s as well, the first gen SE would go on to receive truly magical levels of support from Apple, going through iOS 9 all the way up until iOS 15 in terms of software support. So, with iOS 16, just how usable is the SE first gen in 2025? Well, we're about to find out, so I hope you guys stick around and enjoy. Starting off first and very quickly is the specifications of the iPhone SE first generation. As I mentioned before, a small screen, and that small screen is the 4-inch display. Very nice size in my opinion. Camera wise, we have a 12 megapixel camera taken directly from the iPhone 6s, so it's a pretty good camera in this small frame of a phone. RAM wise, 2 gigabytes of RAM. Sounds low, but iOS optimization was quite good, so it runs quite well still in those 2 gigs. CPU is an Apple A9 processor, which helped it go from iOS 9 all the way up to iOS 15, so strong little A9, pretty good. Battery wise is slightly the downside, or maybe that's just due to age, 1600 milliamp hours. It was decent for the time, but battery life was of course worse than the larger phones because of course less space for the battery, and age since then has made it even worse. Now let's take a look at application support. As it's one of the most important things to most people, we use apps every day. Now, if you remember earlier, we're running iOS 15, which is neat as that is, and the fact that this device can run it. 15 itself is getting a little bit older at this point, and the thing is, iOS developers themselves like to drop support fairly quickly, each iOS version. So, if I had to sum up support, I'd say it's about 50-50. You'll have the apps you expect to work like Discord, and it runs shockingly very well on this device despite its age, faster than some of my Android devices even. You also have Pinterest, which works perfectly fine assuming you already have it installed, more on that later. Instagram also runs very well and is fully supported. A couple other apps I didn't install but also work fine, as you can see here, are Apple TV, Snapchat, and TikTok, and I'm sure much more. Now, that was one half of 50-50. What's the other half? Well, the other half isn't looking as good. The other side is now starting to show its age. YouTube, although the app works perfectly fine if you've installed it, if you try to install it freshly, you'll get the whole this app requires iOS 16 thing, so that sucks. Twitch also requires iOS 16 and won't install. Same for Pinterest, as I mentioned already. And eBay also won't install. Apple Store app won't install, and most importantly, banking apps. At least a lot of them won't install because banking apps love security, so they like to target the recent versions of iOS, so a lot of them will require 16 or 17. Not all, but a lot of them. And I think you guys now know what I mean by 50-50, but I will touch on installing older versions of apps later at the end of the video. But yeah, not looking the best, but still a lot of social apps and communication apps, they're supported, so it's not all bad. Moving on to gaming just for fun and to see what kind of power we can push out of this older phone, we have 3 quick tests because I obviously can't test every game on the App Store, and some of those once again will have an iOS 16 requirement, but a couple I did test was first Run. Runs quite well. It's a pun there. Smash Hit also runs well, and probably the most demanding one is going to be Roblox. Once again, not the most demanding on the App Store itself, but it's a fairly demanding game for a 9-year-old phone, and it runs shockingly well. Similar to Discord, runs better than some of my even better spec'd Android phones, so that just goes to show you how good iOS optimization is. But as good as iOS optimization is, there is such a thing as pushing it too hard. For example, I tried Star Trek Fleet Command, and that was just a bit too demanding. It took 2 minutes to load, and it just simply crashed. So, stick to the light to medium demanding games like Roblox and Minecraft, and you'll have a decent time. Especially on a screen as small, it's quite comfy to game on. Depending on your hand size at least, you might like it, you might not, but I think it was pretty comfy. Next up, a test of this device's camera, and once again, as I said earlier, it is the iPhone 6s's camera technically. They took it out of that phone and just put it into this phone, so let's see how it works. I love photography, so sit back and relax. And that was my video on the iPhone SE first generation. It comes from a time when people were more into smaller phones. Sadly, the proof of that is Apple tried again with the iPhone mini series. It lasted for 2 generations before they cut it. And yeah, we're stuck with huge phones these days. Some of them are smaller, but practically at this point, every phone you can find is probably going to be over 6 inches, display screen wise. Other than some specialty phones, but eh. iPhone SE first gen wise, how is it in 2025? Once again, as I said earlier, it's 50-50. It really depends who's going to be using it. Should you buy a 9-year-old phone in 2025? It depends if you need those apps. As I mentioned, banking apps and even some social apps, they're starting to lose support for iOS 15. So yeah, it just really depends what you need in a phone. Now, as I mentioned, I was going to tell you guys how to download older apps, and that mainly requires you already installing it in the past. That's a gamble. Did you install an app in the past? Well, you should be able to download an older version of it, but if you've never installed it, well, you might be out of luck outside of modding or jailbreaking, which is a possibility, but most people aren't into that. That's why I call this the 50-50 phone. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Maybe you had an iPhone SE first gen back in the day. Maybe you still daily drive it, so do comment below how that's going, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.